Check.
They tell lies. But we don't care if they're lying around here, because what we do is we let the liars lie, because that's what liars do. We let them do what they do. Yes, ma'am, and yes, sirs. Let me know when you're ready, Kymberly. Suit it up. You guys over there, you jocks ready to jock?
We're ready. I am ready.
You ready, sis?
I am.
Well, welcome to this exciting episode of Black Beat Podcast. We have our exciting host today, Kymberly Horner, the Executive Director for PCRI. Thanks for checking in to Black Beat. We're continuing our expose profiling companies and organizations that are building the black community back better than ever. If you like what we do around here, what we're all about, tune in to Flossin TV or our YouTube channels. Hey, Kymberly, welcome to the house today.
Thank you so much, John.
Man, I am so excited about you being here today, sister.
It's so good to see you. It's beautiful out.
Finally,
it's
you
great.
mean to tell me, because I've been in this dark hole back up in here. You know?
No, there's a little bit of sunshine, and the day is starting off to be just wonderful.
But sister, listen here. I remember that when they hired you back in 2019. And you're the only second person to serve in this position, a black person, no less, a sister on the top of the hill here on that. Tell me a little bit about who this lady is sitting in this room with me today.
Yeah, thank you, John. First of all, I want to just spell out what the acronym PCRI really represents, and it's the Portland Community Reinvestment Initiative.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I stand corrected.
Yeah, and we're almost 30 years strong. We've been in the affordable housing industry for nearly 30 years. And I am sitting on the heels of my predecessor, Maxine Fitzpatrick, coupled with a lot of community organizers, including yourself, John Washington. And
in the game.
You know, I even want to give a shout out to Ernest Warren, who is the attorney that really helped get the structure behind putting together the most fabulous affordable housing nonprofit that is Black-run, Black-led. And when I heard the story about PCRI and the history of everything that was happening here in the state of Oregon, and in particular in Portland, when I saw that job opportunity, I said, no one in the nation is handling affordable housing, specifically representing the black community like PCRI. And so when I had the opportunity to be hired to be the executive director, I just, I took that opportunity, because like I said, I don't see anyone else in the nation really trying to represent the interest of culturally specific people like this organization.
Wow. So then that sounds like leadership.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about that. What's that experience been a little bit, been like for you since you've been here?
Leadership is something that has been in my family. It's really the root of the Horner name. It truly is.
Come on with it, girl.
I have, it goes all the way back to my great grandfather, who actually hosted events at the family house for Booker T. Washington.
Wow.
My great grandfather lived to be a little over 100 years old, and he was a slave. And he just felt the importance of politics and community would be a strong factor in the Horner family name.
Wow.
And from there, my grandfather was involved with politics, and then my father became very involved in politics. He served as the first African-American mayor for the city of Thousand Oaks, and on that city council for nearly 17 years.
Thousand Oaks ain't no joke down there.
No, they talk about, and we all grow up in different kind of communities and societies, and everyone talks about Portland being the whitest city in the United States. I think it's seconded by the city of Thousand Oaks. So it's pretty amazing thing, especially having that legacy that I am following. So my leadership skills really are coming from that strong family dynamic.
Wow.
My grandmother on my father's side really preached and practiced education as being a strong foundation for the family. And I have a sister that skipped 2 grades based on the fact that my parents taught her to read and write at 2 years old. She went on to Pepperdine University and to study journalism. So that's I have cousins that are attorneys and doctors. So our family has always been connected to community and to striving to have better outcomes for the next generation.
Yeah, I met some of that exciting stock you from.
Thank you.
Hey, so here you are. You're in the town now, PCRI, and you got one of the highest concentration of affordable housing in the area, mixed and middle income housing and walkable commercial quarters. And, tell me a little bit more about all of that. I mean, where are you guys going with all this? I mean, it sounds like you got the biggest piece of real estate in Portland, but where you headed?
Yeah, and so that is such an important concept for the community to really get their minds around, because how often are you going to see a Black-led organization owning and operating over $500 million worth of assets?
Wow.
So through the strong work of some of the folks I mentioned that really established the organization back in 1992, the portfolio, it's not only a scattered sites portfolio where we have single family homes, about 350 of those.
Wow.
But we also own apartment complexes, 2 that are located on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and very, very special to us as an organization. They're low income housing tax credit properties, which involves a lot of compliance, but the bottom line is these are preference policy properties where we are welcoming back people that have been historically displaced from the community.
That's a big one, though.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's a big one. It's an important one, and it's something that should not ever be forgotten or ignored. And as a result of that, these buildings that are located on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard serve as a beacon for the community to come back to.
So, Kymberly, when you think about the preference policy, tell me a little bit about what's your perception of how those things all came to be. What was the significance of the preference policy, and why was there such a thing when it came to housing?
So the thing that's so interesting to anyone that follows affordable housing is all the things that were happening here in Portland with the displacement, with the redlining, with gentrification, with a term that we use, it's called eminent domain, where people's properties were taken away from them through policies that the city put in place. And so as a result of that, the stakeholders, grassroots community members, and policymakers decided that it was time to try to correct some of the wrongs that happened to lower income communities of colors, and specifically the Black community. And they created something with some instruction from Maxine Fitzpatrick that really talks about how people should have the right to return to this area. And that's what the preference policy is all about. People have an opportunity to apply to the city, the Portland Housing Bureau, with regard to their application to be considered a preference policy individual. They're ranked based on their history and orientation in the community from years ago. And there's a ranking criteria. I believe 6 or 7 are the highest points you can get, and 0 the lowest.
Gotcha.
So if you were someone that can demonstrate that land was taken away from your family and things of that nature, and demonstrate historical ties to the community, you rank higher on that preference policy list. And from there, in order to enter into properties that are being developed in conjunction with city funds in the northeast community, allows for you to put yourself on this preference policy list, and then you have an opportunity to be one of the families or individuals that are able to apply to get into the affordable housing that we're building, and you have kind of a first crack at it.
So the preference policy came, and but before the preference, was the Pathway 1000 program before the preference policy, or was it was it all the same time?
It is all kind of wrapped around the same time period,
yeah.
And the document that you're referring to is Pathway 1000,
right?
And that is a strategy that Maxine Fitzpatrick, the board of directors for PCRI, you yourself, John Washington, and a lot of other grassroots people put together this document called Pathway 1000, and it's really a strategy to minimize the displacement that occurred in Northeast Portland and giving people of color and lower income people a right to return to this area.
Wow.
So our goal is to build 1,000 units within a 10-year time frame. That time frame started in about 2017. So of the 1,000 units that our organization is devoted to building,
now, is that a 5-year? What's the time span on that, Kim?
10-year time frame.
10-year time for 1,000 homes?
Yep. 10-year time frame. So it all started in about 2017. We've already built close to 200 units of affordable housing.
Wow.
The next step is to build at least 800 units of home ownership.
So you better be getting busy.
I know.
You know
we're all getting busy.
I'm trying to tell you, build a whole lot of houses.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah. And so the strategy even incorporates just getting people into home ownership. So we've got a whole team of individuals that train people up for home ownership. We do some mortgage counseling. We do foreclosure counseling.
Wow.
We look at the whole spectrum, the whole holistic health of getting into housing, staying in housing, and moving into home ownership opportunities.
And I think that's really the relevant factor right there, I think, Kim, when you think about it. I mean, because it's certainly not an easy path for some people who struggled getting there. And the fact that you can, to some degree, hold their hand coming through the process, which is... and I remember buying my first house, girl. Let me tell you, it was a daunting experience.
It was daunting in the day. It's daunting today. You know, and that's what our organization is so good about. We hold your hand through the process from start to finish. And we've got very qualified people that help you with that process.
Yeah.
And they're sensitive to some of the impacts that are primarily seen in lower income and communities of color. And that's with credit scores.
Oh, yeah. That's like talking about sex.
Oh, it really is.
You can't. I mean, the two things that people don't want to talk about, sex and taxes and money, right?
That is it.
And shame, guilt, all of that kind of stuff. You want to tap into something that'll run you away from the table. Start talking about what your money look like when it's funny, right?
That's absolutely it in a nutshell. But we do it, and we're committed to continuing to do it.
That delicate surgery that sometimes requires navigation, and you know, and that alone is a factor worthy of itself to be in existence, you know. And so, but when you think about, you know, the affordable housing factor in the margin right about now, do you think, Kymberly, it's a good thing or a not so good thing, all this affordable housing being built and stuff? Like, talk to me a little bit more about what your perception about affordable housing is today.
Yeah.
In its usage, I mean, what's the designation? And do you think it's a temporary reality, or do you think it's a long-term fix, short-term fix? What's your thoughts about it?
It's all of it. Long-term, short-term, it is all of it. We need tall buildings, short buildings, buildings in, you know, various neighborhoods, buildings outside of neighborhoods. We need all of it. The governor right now has a proposal on the table to build 36,000 units a year of affordable housing.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty lofty.
Wow.
So that puts all of us affordable housing providers in a stance where we need to step up to the challenge, and we're ready for that. We want it, we know we need it, and we are simply trying to get people housed in clean, decent, safe, and sanitary conditions.
Clean, decent, and safe and sanitary conditions. What a wonderful concept. You know, just to think, you know, you don't have to be shamed in living on the bottom and then be living in the bottom. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, you know, somebody got to care. You know, and PCRI seems to be doing a heck of a job. So you've inherited one of the biggest landholder organizations in the city, and to some degree, almost an estate, I would assume, to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and then you also, not only did you inherit this large issue of housing, you also inherited a large staff. What's it been like since you've been in Portland running this staff for you?
Well,
guys?
I do want to let the audience know that when I got here, John said, Kymberly, I'm here, and if you ever need me to throw the hammer, I'm right here for you. And there's been times when I've woken up at 2 or 3 in the morning where I'm like, I might need to call John for him to throw the hammer. Yeah, it is. It is something that I don't think the average person can really get their minds around. Because imagine, if you will, when Ernest Warren was able to claw back 350 properties to go into the hands of an affordable housing provider to make sure they didn't.
Accomplishment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
And those properties at the time, we got them for about $32,000. Now here we are.
Time no more.
Yeah, here it is. 2023. The values of those properties have moved significantly from 30,000 to 450,000 on average. So imagine having stewardship of 350 properties that have a value of at least $400,000 each, right? 450,000, and so that's quite significant.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
addition to that, we also have commercial properties on some of the main commercial thoroughfares in Portland. One is on Alberta Street, and the other properties are located on Mississippi.
Dead in the hood, girl.
Yeah. So not only are we an affordable housing provider, but we're also a commercial real estate holder.
Yeah. Wow, and that's the exciting part about that when you think about it, all this mixed use and stuff that you got going on. But, talk to me a little bit, though. You're a woman to some degree, and you would think in a man's world to some degree. Is it still antiquated that way? I mean, in the sense of what it is?
Yeah.
So, but you're going for the goal, sis.
I am.
What's it
and
like
I'm
to
taking
land
that
the big
team
deal?
with me. Yeah.
But what's it like to size up
Woo.
with the big deal, man, and be able to pull it home?
It's a difficult task. Even before I even started working for PCRI, I was in the arena of economic development.
Right.
And those circles are primarily white male-led circles.
Yeah.
And you don't really see women of color, people of color entering into that arena. And so it is a task. It is a task every day of looking at that portfolio and making sure that we can manage it properly, that we can, keep all the wheels on. Because when you inherit a portfolio the size of something like PCRI, our properties go back from, I think we have one that's as old as the late 1800s.
Wow.
And so this portfolio of properties that were built in the 1920s, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they all require a certain amount of maintenance, rehabilitation, things of that nature. So looking at the funding that's available to make sure that we are properly and able to maintain the properties and keep the families in the properties in the condition that they should be in. Wow. So we use programs like the Portland Clean Energy Fund. We reach out to folks like Meyer Memorial Trust for grants to help with the operations, and always seeking additional funding opportunities so we can continue to hold on to the portfolio, add to the portfolio, and look for opportunities to develop our home ownership program. So not only are we an affordable housing provider, but we're actually a developer. And a lot of people don't recognize that about the organization.
Wow.
So we are one of the largest Black-led development teams in Portland.
Y'all are like pretty much like a one-stop shop over there.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
when
do
you
it
think
all.
about the housing development side of that. But Kymberly, I'm sitting here with you, and I'm just amazed at the amount of responsibility and the size of an organization and thing that you seem to manage. And for me, I'm kind of one of those philosophical, thinking, kind of spiritual kind of guys. I'm always looking at substance. What's the substance that drives people to be able to stand in these arenas that they stand in? Talk to me a little bit about your philosophy, Kymberly. I mean, what makes you show up every day to something to me is large and in charge. I mean, and I'm not always attracted to that. Yeah, large and in charge, but
a lot of people aren't. And but when I come to work every day, I sit in the parking lot and I reflect on the people that we're serving. I do not exit the car until I say a little prayer for the people that we serve. So sometimes folks are thinking, is she on the phone in the car? Why is she sitting there? There's days that I need to meditate and really reflect a little bit harder to make sure that I am making the right decisions for a portfolio the size of PCRI's. But, it's interesting in that we know that we primarily serve the lower income community and the Black community. And it's a lot of responsibility because I show up for the over 3,000 people that are housed in our portfolio.
Right on.
And I show up for the staff.
Yeah.
It is staff that is doing this hard work alongside with me. And I can't do it without them. I can't do it without a good, strong board of directors.
Right.
So we're all in it together, but we all are very rooted to the mission of making sure that people who have systemically been disenfranchised and left out of opportunity for growth and development with their incomes and their educational pursuits, we are all there to represent those people. And that's what makes me get up every day and think about the people that we're serving. It's little to do about me, but it's all to do about the people that we're committed to serving and the commitment to the employees that show up every day.
Yeah, that whole notion, the philanthropic notion that you can't keep it if you don't give it away, know, and then those things that drive you internally. And, Kymberly, I'm really, I remember the interview time when you were coming through and the candidates which you were up against. And when they asked me, well, what do you think, Wash? I said, well, that woman over there seems like she gonna be your most valuable candidate. Look at you now. You weathered some storms. You're here. You look vibrant. You're engaged. But I think the thing that really fascinates me most about you, Kymberly, is that you show up in the marketplace and you're ready to go, and on behalf of those people who do not have. And I'm really excited about that with PCRI and the fact that you guys can stand on the front line representing the fact for those people who don't have representation, you guys show up to represent and give them some opportunity. And Kymberly, so anyway, that last question that I always ask most people, that come in, and, because I don't have all the questions, but usually when I sit through these types of interviews with people, there's something in my mind that says, I wonder if there's a question that I should have asked them that I didn't ask them. And usually you walk away with that hindsight, and or even the interviewee is sitting there with, I wish he asked me this question. So is there one of those questions in your mind that you have right now that you wished I would ask you sitting here that you could share with our listeners and our viewers at this time?
Yeah, I would ask, if I was you, I'd be asking me where I see the future of PCRI. What is as the new executive director, what is the direction that I would like to take the organization?
I knew you had that magic in you. Want to share that with us?
Yeah. So as we develop Pathway 1000, we do know that would pump about $460 million into the local economy if we were able to build the 1,000 units in the 10-year time span.
Wow.
And so that's a great concept, because right now there needs to be an infusion of cash into the local community because of the economic times that we're in right now. But the vision that I have for the organization is to become that beacon, that example to be pointed to as to how homeownership opportunities for the lower income communities and specifically for the Black community can be a form of reparations.
There you
so
go.
If we can take the concept of Pathway 1000 and launch it nationwide and gain some traction so people can see that by building these homes and providing generational wealth opportunities for those who've had it either stripped away or have never been taught the true value of home ownership and keeping your credit score intact,
all that good
spending
stuff.
habits, all of that. That's where we need to take this organization.
Right.
So representing just Northeast Portland is very important, but making sure that this is a nationwide platform for PCRI to really demonstrate to the world how reparations for people who have been historically harmed by failed policies and a lot of other things, right? This is that. Yeah. Pathway 1000 is that strategy.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm really excited about, as I said before, is the fact that you got some thought behind the process. You know, it's not just about giving people something, a handout. It's about assisting and facilitating them through the process to success and staying with them in that milieu until you arrive there. And I think that that's what really excites me continuously about PCRI is that the process, we continue to talk about socialism and capitalism. You know, the conversation is always, it seems to be about what they're doing to us, right? But I think that one of the greatest human ripoffs that we've had from the cultural side in America is being locked out of the knowledge of capitalism, how it actually works. You know, some of us get it, some of us don't. Most of us are looking at how we're being treated. But I think that time, to some degree, is not necessarily to look away from that, but is to figure out means and measures to address that. And I think PCRI is doing that. And I'm really much respect to you, Kymberly, for climbing into that situation over there and continuing to move it forward, because the terrain today is changing. So, but yeah, maybe that's a question that I'd like to ask you. How do you see the changes going? I mean, obviously you see the landscape and the soil is turning, and there's always something new popping up into the environment. You know, what's your take on a lot of the changes that are coming on? And do you see land ahead somewhere that is oasis so we can at least get a rest for a minute, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, you know, always being optimistic about the future is also very, very important.
Yeah, the best of us is in front of us, right?
Yes, exactly. And but we do know that we're operating in some very, very challenging times. Right now, construction in some arenas, it's about $500 a square foot to build.
Wow. And I remember when you started, it was about $106 or $107.
Correct.
You know?
And so now you know that we're up against some very, very big challenges, and we have to carefully pick and choose the projects that we can advance. And then still being mindful of the fact that if we build something, a homeownership unit, if that unit is about $450,000 on the market, we need subsidies that are much greater than that to get people into that. At least 150, closer to 200,000 is what a down payment assistance really requires. So we try to subsidize.
That was less than 3 years. I remember it was $90 in the subsidy. I mean, 90,000.
Yeah.
Now you're.
Yeah, it is great because we do know that we need to make sure that we're putting people in a position where when they enter into homeownership, they still have an opportunity to meet the daily demands of their living. Right. So a deeper down payment assistance it's very critical to our program.
Wow.
We had a donor that just showed up. She showed up and she provided us with $40,000 for our down payment assistance program.
Per head or just in that pot? Just
in that pot. Yeah. She showed up in December. Said, I've got some money for your organization. When people tell me that, I'm thinking, $2,000 or $3,000. She came back with a $40,000 check. Wow. I nearly fainted. Yeah. And so it's good.
The kind of donors you like to show up through the door.
She doesn't want to be known, but so that's why we keep her name sacred and in our hearts. But it's people like that really help the program move people into homeownership opportunities. So
if there were more people out there listening to this, where do they come and show up to, and who do they reach, and what do they say to get to get to you, to get you this money?
They knock on the door. I mean, we were closed during the pandemic. The code word to get in is, what do you think that code word is?
Knock, knock.
No, it's Soul Train. And so that's the password to get into my office.
Soul Train.
Yep, Soul Train is the password. So
it ain't money, huh? You got to get on this money train.
Exactly.
Soul Train.
So we let her in, and she just described what she wanted to do, and then came back with that big check. But any donors out there that are interested in a tax write-off for you too, donate to the organization that's been here for over 30 years.
Real important stuff. That 30-year thing. I mean, there's something to be said to, having some roots and some predictability or some longevity. And I mean, today we getting all kinds of little things springing up here and there, thinking that they understand the game, thinking that they understand the route. But, my hat goes off to them, because after 30 years of being a part of anything, we understand the nuances of it, and it ain't no joke.
It really isn't.
It ain't no fun Wally World ride. It's about work over here. You know what I'm saying?
It really is. Construction is a very complicated industry to be in, and a number of things can go right, and a number of things can go wrong, and you just have to sit and weather through it.
Ms. Horner, I am so glad you stopped around and shared with us a little bit of your insight and stuff about PCRI, man, and yourself. And again, I can't say this enough to you, sis. Welcome to Portland.
Thank you.
And I'm seeing you getting your Portland wings going on. You got the web feet and all that. There's been so much water running around out here. Is you ready for spring or what?
I am. I am really looking forward to spring. Portland is just beautiful at this time of the year. And then as you go into the summer months, it is an absolutely fabulous place to be.
Well, again, thank you, sister, for this exciting episode of Black Beat Podcast. If you like what we do around here, y'all just need to tune in to Flossin TV or any of our YouTube stations around here. But listen here, y'all. It's exciting. It gets even more exciting each day we do this around here. So y'all need to keep listening. And again, sister, welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you, PCRI, Kymberly Horner, y'all. Y'all reach out to her when y'all need some housing stuff. And let me tell you something, man. They serious about building these houses around here. So if you want to get in the mix on this, if you think you want to move toward home ownership, get a hold of Miss Horner. You're here in her organization, PCRI. They're on MLK at this point in time. And again, thank you very much, sister, for showing up with us. You here?
Thank you for the opportunity, yes, John. And thank you to the residents and my staff.
Yeah, man, we always available to you. And we got that hammer parked by the...
Got the hammer. And you got the password.
We got the password, too. They get Soul Train.
Yes.
Hey, again, thank y'all. And have a good afternoon, everybody. Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I told him subscribe. We'll see you soon on the next one, yep. Thank you, sis. How'd you do?
That sounded excellent.
Excellent.
That's what I need.
Tell your sister is in journalism. You know how to.
Oh yeah, she fit right in that last question. Was there a question you might want to ask?